I don't care if you have AAA experience or you've made a bunch of published games. I just want to see the effort put in. Hey, I made 3 Game Jam games. You know, that's what I look for in a candidate.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of GameLogic Behind the Games. Really happy to be welcoming Trevor Wernisch to the pod today. Trevor, how are you?
Hey guys, I am incredible. Thank you. How are you?
Brilliant. I'm good, thank you. I'm good. I'm delighted you agreed to come and talk to me today. I really appreciate it. And as I was saying, Trevor, I was trying to find someone in your field, so haven't spoken to any senior UX or UI professionals yet. So really great that you could come and speak to me today.
Anytime.
Trevor is the UX UI director over at Unbroken Studios, right?
Yes, sir. That's right.
And believe you're based in Palm Beach, South Florida.
Yeah, sunny South Florida.
Lovely. How hot is it over there right now? Make us jealous.
Well, we just had a few weeks of winter, so that's about all we get. So it's been a nice medium 70s so far, but any day it'll be in the 80s and 90s again. So
I like how you say a few weeks of winter. Like,
oh yeah, that's all we get.
Yeah, we get a few weeks of summer, and everything else is rain, pretty much.
Yeah,
and that's if we're lucky. Brilliant. So, Trevor, if you don't mind, I mean, you've had from our discussions and from LinkedIn profiles, a pretty varied journey so far to where you've got. If you don't mind, tell us about that journey, and let's hear how you've got to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. I like diversity as far as what I'm doing in my career. Everything I've done the past 20 years has been visual art oriented or graphic design, UI, UX in some way. I did magazine ads and photography for many years. I worked on vehicle interfaces, both first party and kind of startup companies, video games, of course, but it's all been in a similar realm of designing interfaces. They just happen to be how you interact with them is different. So yeah, I kind of just like variety. So I've jumped in and out of the gaming industry for a little bit. Like I said, I work for some car manufacturers. I've done a lot of software and app development. So yeah, that's and now I'm back in gaming for now. It's definitely the most fun industry that I think I've been in. At the end of the day, you're doing entertainment, so how bad could it be? But so for now, in the foreseeable future, I'm working on games.
Cool. And how does it compare to, say, I mean, that's a huge change, right? From car manufacturing to the games industry. Maybe not with what you're actually doing, but for us that don't really kind of understand the intricacies of it, that seems like a massive change. Like, how was it? And that must have been quite a difficult jump to take, or maybe it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, that yes and no. Gaming is definitely different from any other industry in the sense of you in general UX, you want to go from point A to point B the most seamless way possible. The user wants to do an action. How do we get there as quick as possible? Well, with gaming, while we want a seamless journey, how can it be difficult for the user in the sense of how can it be entertaining? How can we do a roundabout method and make it more fun than just I clicked a button and it does the action? Take crafting, for example, in any game, right? I'm going to put a bunch of ingredients together. I need to go to my storage unit, bring it over to the crafting table, and there's other steps involved that make it hopefully more fun. And with a car, if I'm driving 60 miles an hour, I don't want, I want to change the AC or I want to change the volume. How do you make that as seamless as possible? You want to make that as safe and quick as possible. So there's a paradigm shift in that sense, but a lot of the principles transfer over. It is just interaction and accessibility, and a lot of, you still use drop-down menus, you still do buttons, you still do, voice interactions at some point. So a lot of things transfer over, but that's what I like. It's like I can change industries, be pretty good at it, and still learn a bunch of things at the same time. So it's like, oh yeah, I know the foundational, what changes in a car, what changes in a kiosk when I walk up to it and it's a giant touch screen. What are the new kind of tweaks you need to learn? And then I can take those new things that I've learned and transfer it to the next industry or back into gaming. And, oh, hey, remember when we did this for this boat screen, this boat touch screen we made? How do some of those interesting things we did there transfer over to maybe some new game UI that we're building? So it's all in the same world with little different hooks and different ways to look at different situations.
Yeah, and it's really interesting points you make there when you talk about the AC in a car. And I think like so many simple functions that you just take for granted. I don't think unless you're actually doing the UX and UI design, you wouldn't really appreciate actually the work that would go into doing that, right? Because it's something you just take for granted. And actually thinking somebody's actually had to sit down and think about this and plan this and implement this, right?
Yeah, right. And even with when I work with younger designers, it's very interesting to see a designer who maybe wants to get into UI UX, and there's a simple task of design the layout for this screen and let's build a drop down. Everyone's used drop downs their entire computer career, but when you have to sit down and actually think about how a drop down works, what happens when you click the button? How do the visuals look? When I click somewhere else, when I do something else, all these different states you need to consider. And it's really interesting to see how much UX and UI can be taken for granted when it works well and it just works how you expect. But somebody had to sit there and think of every single state and every single thing you're going to do to make it seamless.
And for someone like you, I would imagine that comes relatively naturally. But even now, trying to process that in my head for someone that doesn't do that, that seems totally alien. And I guess that it's finding those people that are that way inclined. I would guess, right?
Yeah, I mean that's thankfully why I have a career. It's because not everyone thinks about that, and it's taken for granted until you're in it and you're building those things, and then you need to make those considerations. So, thankfully, I've been able to do that.
Nice. And one thing that I'm often asked, and quite often my guests are asked, and it's pretty topical on LinkedIn and social media at the moment, is about breaking into the gaming industry. And obviously, you've kind of gone in and out within different roles there. And I'm wondering, was it difficult to get your first gig in gaming? Was it something that you were really aiming to do, or did it happen quite naturally?
No, that's a great question. Definitely, the first opportunity was the most difficult one. I never had a lifelong dream to be in gaming. I was doing some car interfaces and advertising, and I just thought, can I just do gaming? Can I move out to California from Florida, and how would I do this? And thus started the 50 applications. And when you don't have any experience, it's definitely very difficult to be passed over. And I think it just takes certain studios to have enough experience to see this person has experience doing what I need, but it's not directly. They didn't make a bunch of games, but they've done similar things. Mm-hmm. They've done a bunch of web design. They've done a bunch of interfaces. How can that transfer over to? And so I think that can be difficult without having any direct experience. But thankfully, a studio was like-minded, like myself, and could see through that and gave me an opportunity. And I went out there and I made sure that I'd get the job. I did a bunch of. I remember going into the interview and I was like, "Hey, what if your game was? This is 10 plus years ago. What if your game that's PC based was on mobile? What if your marketplace was on mobile? How would we do that?" And I showed him like this whole app that I built, and I was like, "Here's what it could look like. You'd be stupid not to hire me. I've done all this work just for an interview. Maybe I was blowing smoke, but it was. I made sure I made it hard for them to say no."
I think that's a great lesson, right? And often I will ask guests, what advice would you give? And you've kind of answered that question already, right? But I guess if you're coming into an interview and you've done prep and you've gone above and beyond, and you're giving yourself every opportunity, right, to get half a foot in the door there.
It's your opportunity to lose. So and I mean, thankfully now, like with Unity and Unreal, like it's easier than ever to actually have experience before having paid experience. Anybody can download these free engines and just build stuff. Resources are plenty, free resources. Like, so there is no excuse now to ever say like, I don't have any experience in this engine, or like, if you want something, you need to get it. You need to go get it because everybody else is.
Yes, certainly. I feel from what I can see, kind of externally looking in, whether it's design, engineering, whatever that might be, and you might get a programmer in a different industry, but they've still got plenty of opportunity to have a side project whereby they might make a little game, they might train with Unreal Engine or Unity or whatever that might be, and be able to bring that to the party and say, like, listen, I don't do this every day, but this is what I'm capable of. And as you allude to, right, there's no excuse for not doing that. Right. Mm-hmm. And actually, although it's tough at the moment in the industry, in some ways, there's more opportunity now for people to be able to showcase their talents, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's what we're seeing. What did I hear the other day? That Steam released, was it 7,000 games last year or something? Everybody wants to make a game right now and can, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
great. But also there's a lot of chaff, to get through. Um, so yeah, I think it can be difficult, right? There is always my family, my life. I don't have time to make a game. Unfortunately, the guy you're competing against, the guy or girl, like they do make the time. They are learning, and I don't care if you have AAA experience or you've made a bunch of published games. I just want to see the effort put in. Hey, I made 3 Game Jam games. You know,
yeah,
that's what I look for in a candidate.
yeah.
If they
And
don't, if
that's
they don't have
actually,
any, yeah.
yeah, of course. And actually, that's kind of what I was going to ask you next. Whether your experience of kind of coming in and out of the industry has shaped how you would hire when you're looking for people in your team, right? I guess you'd be a little bit more open minded with people outside the industry, right?
I'd like to think so. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's hard to see. You're as good as the last thing that you did. Who doesn't want to see a bunch of AAA games that they already made? It's a lot easier to hire. But if you're hiring a junior or a lower level person, any experience and anything that shows you're hungry, that you want to put in the effort. It is, you don't just want to be a cool game designer, but it's like, oh, I have a passion for this. Here's a case study I did for UX that applied to a website. Just showing the foundational principles there of UX and UIs is what I'm more interested in.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's a lot easier to train somebody on the skills rather than and the passion. If they have the passion, the skills will come. If they have the
Yeah.
skills, that doesn't make them necessarily a good employee, right? They could just be bored with it and not interested in trying hard. So, yeah.
100%. That applies to when I'm hiring here as well, for sure. I tell you, we had and I won't reveal the candidate or the studio name. It wouldn't be fair, but we had a candidate, a really great designer that we were speaking to last year who was looking for something new, and an opportunity came up with a studio that we work with. And this candidate said, listen, I would absolutely love to work there. I love what they do. And actually, presented your relatively standard resume, but also they made their own game around their experience. So they made basically a walkthrough game of their work experience, which is, and they got the job. And I just thought, what an amazing idea. And it kind of comes back to your point, like showing just how much interest they had in that company, in that role, and putting that dedication in. I mean, I think if you're a hiring manager and you see someone's done that, like you're going to interview them at least, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, back when I was looking for gigs 10, 15 years ago, it was cool and everything was less digital. It was cool to have a cool resume and an overly, something really cool designed. And that's gone away by and large with the days of LinkedIn and just text-based things. But I think that shows effort and it shows interest in it. And if you can cater it more so to the company you're looking for, or hiring at or applying to, I think that's even better, right? Just putting the effort in. That's going to kind of make you rise to the ranks a little bit, rise to the top of the pile.
Yeah, and you know what? Obviously, I run a recruitment firm here, and I would hope that some of the people listening will be some of those people that are looking for new opportunities either now or in the future, and I hope that some of the things they get from these podcasts and the conversations is hopefully some advice and some tips from some of the guests. And I think you've given brilliant information and insight there. So thank you very much for that.
Nice.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
If you don't mind, Trevor, I'd love to learn more about what you currently do at Unbroken. So you're UX UI director on a day-to-day basis. What does that mean? What does that entail? And what are the good bits? What are your favorite bits?
Oh, yeah. So right now we're, I want to make sure I whatever I say, I'm allowed to say. So
Sorry,
some
I
of
put you on the spot a bit there.
so we just shipped the Suicide Squad game, Kill the Justice League. So a lot of the studio is working on that, and I'm part of the other half of the studio that is working on a new Harry Potter Quidditch game. There's a few trailers out there right now. Not a lot of details released about it. Definitely excited to be working on that. But that's my day to day, just working towards building. Be careful again. Yeah, I'm just building systems for the game. Building, a lot of the gameplay HUD. We are in the UI UX department at the studio. We have a good chunk of engineers, but not a lot of UI and UX support. I'm kind of the point man on a lot of things. So I'm I mean, I absolutely love it. I love having my fingers in all the pies. So I not only doing like the interactive prototypes in Figma, the wireframes and the flowcharts, but also the arts and implementing stuff in Unreal. So kind of the whole shebang I'm able to be part of, which is like my dream. Like I thrive in like these smaller studio spaces where it's not hundreds and hundreds of people. Um, so yeah, any day, it's wireframing or it's building design docs, or a lot of time now is just spent in Unreal, just implementing things and building materials and animations and things. It's a blast.
Nice. I mean, you're clearly passionate about what you do, which is brilliant. And I'm wondering, did you always have that passion for art and design, even kind of pre-education as a kid? Were you into it? Did you fall into it at college? Like, how's that come about?
Yeah. I mean, I think it just fell into graphic design in general. Not for a passion, but just for I'm able to be decent at this. And web design is kind of where I started in the Flash days, Macromedia Flash. But I mean, I not to get like therapy about it, but I find value. I find value in the stuff I can produce. So thus, if I can produce a lot, I can find a lot of value and I feel valuable. So I've always been a hard worker, and I've always tried to produce as much as I can and be of value to myself and my teams. I've always worked a full-time job, but I've always ran a studio on the side, and I've always contracted work, and I've always wanted to do more for variety's sake. I'm doing gaming full-time. What can I do on the side that's not gaming to keep things spicy? But also I just love making things, not only in design, but kind of electronics and art outside of game computers. So yeah, I just like to produce things, I think.
That's cool. Have you got any cool side projects you're allowed to tell us about, like on camera? Anything particularly interesting?
I have a really fun, exciting one that I tinkered with while making this game. I can't talk about it too much until the game's released. But I built some fun Halloween. I do a big haunted house every year, so I built some electronics for the haunted house and candy dispensers and buttons you can press and kind of things like that.
My kids would love that.
Yeah, and that's like the worth and the direct feedback of seeing like smiles on kids' faces or whatever. Like that's the value I find. I built something, they used it, I produced it, and they had a bunch of fun with it. So yeah.
That's amazing. I just have to go and spend loads of money on it. I'm not able to build anything like that. My kids just tell Dad, but I am that.
It's definitely financially devastating. Some of the things that I take on. They're not wise financially, but it's a lot of fun. So
great. A couple of things left for me. I think it's obviously very, very topical at the moment. Sadly, the state of the industry, mass layoffs. Obviously, no one wants to see that. And I'm just wondering if you've got any thoughts on kind of this year and any maybe predictions or any reassurances that you might be able to give anyone. I mean, from my perspective, I certainly feel that things are slowly going to go in the right direction. I hope, but I think we all hope that, and I hope that most of the layoffs are done now. But I'm wondering if you've got any thoughts on it or insight.
Yeah, last year was definitely difficult for a ton of people. And I think people like to think a new year is a reset and it's all going to start over. But we immediately saw January and February were just worse, if not,
brutal.
And I think we're still recovering from the pandemic as far as all of tech is, not just gaming, all of tech. Yeah. We see all the big tech firms have had massive layoffs, and it's just the over hiring and then just trying to fix that now. I don't think it's over yet. I think we have a little bit to go. You can still see everyone tightening their belts and worried about the industry and just kind of worried about, what is still left to happen. Like I said, all these games being released means everyone's attention is divided that much more, which means less money for any given person, good or bad. And the huge studios can kind of, the Fortnites, they can, while they even had layoffs, while Epic had layoffs, they set the status quo of like what's expected for gaming, what's expected for live service and release schedules, and no one can compete with that with those size studios. So we're in between we're in between a rock and a hard place right now in the industry, and I think 18 months, maybe a year, it'll start to turn around. But that it'll start to turn around once it's shaken out and more layoffs happen. I think there's going to be a break even point where it's like, oh, okay, things are starting to feel like normal again, that we're just kind of oversaturated. And it's definitely one of my fears. Like, I mentioned how secure and safe I feel at my studio, but there's a deep seated fear in me of the industry as a whole. Just like, I feel secure, but who knows? Who knows at any point, what's going to happen. And that's part of the reason I left the industry in the past. I thankfully have never been part of like any mass layoffs, but it's just more secure in other industries at times. It feels more secure, I should say. And that's, that I think that'll always be a fear that I'm trying to get over. But I mean, that's where we are right now. That all being said, I'm super thankful for the studio I'm at and the people there who have helped support us.
Yeah, I think it's a really natural fear. Even me sometimes I think, am I barking up the wrong tree here? Is this an industry actually? Do I need to be looking at alternatives here, alternative revenue streams or alternative markets? I don't know. I mean, I think a couple of things where that I try and when I try and give some space and look at things with an almost neutral perspective is that I feel that you alluded to the general tech market, and I feel that the gaming market is probably maybe 2, 3, 4 months behind the general tech market trends, and certainly some of the signs are encouraging there. It's not going to be plain sailing, but certainly there are some good indicators of growth this year. And the second point is the games industry is still massive, and it will still continue to grow. And I think there is unfortunately going to be a bit of a natural reset, and it's going to be a bit of pain in the meantime, but it will come good. So I try and cling on to those glimmers of hope, and I hope that some of those people struggling right now, I hope that they can stay positive and hopefully get back on their feet as soon as possible, really.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it can be scary. I don't know if this is, I can't think of many times that I'm aware of that the impact has felt so close to me and kind of, it's a little worrisome.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, to quickly just to harken back, I think it is scary if you put all your eggs in one basket. You mentioned diversifying and things like that. And I think that's thankfully, something I've been able to do where it's like, if I'm screwed in gaming, I kind of can fall back into something else. And I think that's important for anybody in any industry. Engineers are usually pretty safe, but if you're a prop artist or something, it's always good to hedge your bets and not kind of be like, I'm in gaming 100%, because you could not be. So just being prepared, I think, for anything that can happen.
Yeah, great advice again. Thank you, Trevor. Just before I let you go, and I've taken up lots of your time, and I'm really, really appreciative.
You're all good.
I'd just love to know if there's anything coming out this year that you're looking forward to getting your hands on, because I mainly ask that question so I can build up my own library. So I'm wondering if there's any hotly anticipated games that you look forward to playing.
I'm really excited about just the industry as a whole of just RTS seems to be coming back. There's like a handful of new RTS games that are coming out, and I'm just excited that they were dead for 10 years, it seems like, and now there's a lot being developed, and I think that's a really interesting space. Some of my favorite, Warcraft going up on that. Just very excited about that. Hades 2 is coming out. Hades 1, probably one of my top all-time games, just as far as the package of what Hades is. So Hades 2, I hope can deliver, but that's where I'm at right now.
Nice. Trevor, you've been a star, and you've given some brilliant bits of advice and information there. So thank you very much. I'm really grateful. I'm grateful for your time. It's been awesome to connect as well. So
yes, sir. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Not at all. And thank you everybody for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I shall be back very, very soon. Take care, Trevor. All the best.
Yes, sir. Thank you. See ya.